Welcome everybody to this first session where we're going to look at how we install Python using Anaconda. So really there's a very basic goal associated with this session. I want to make sure that by the end of the workshop today that you have a working Python installation using Conda that you can access via Jupyter Notebooks. So I suspect that the installation is going to be easiest if you're using your own computer. It can be a little bit tricky if you're using a computer that's part of a PC cluster at the university. So we're going to install Python via the Anaconda installation procedure. And this will basically mean that you end up with not just Python installed, but also a bunch of tools and libraries that are associated with the Conda installation too. There are many different versions of Python. It's possible you've already got Python installed on your own computer, but the problem is that if you've got different versions of Python, different versions of the libraries installed on your machine, then it's very hard to do analysis in a fully reproducible manner, because for some projects you might require particular versions of your libraries or even a particular version of Python, whereas for other projects you might require a slightly different sort of configuration. So the Anaconda package manager approach is a way to ensure that you can create separate environments on your computer with particular configurations of Python and packages for each project you're going to be wanting to work on. So even if you've already got Python installed on your laptop, I want you to go through this Anaconda installation procedure, because that'll ensure we've got the right configuration of software on our machines and that everything will ultimately be reproducible. And because it's absolutely critical that you've got a working version of Python running on your machines at the end of this workshop. If you have any problems, please let me know and I'll solve those. Okay. So, basic question: why would you want to learn Python in the first place? So Python has been around since about 1991 as a general purpose programming language. So it's used not just for data science, but for a whole host of different sorts of software activities. It's increasingly used in data science, specifically in the context of machine learning and scientific programming. But in more general use cases, Python is what Instagram, Netlify, and Spotify, or not Netlify, Netflix and Spotify have all been written in. So it's a really powerful programming language that can achieve many different sorts of tasks. It's relatively easy to learn, and it's really in demand both within academia and within industry. And if you were to go down the data science career route, data analysis career route, either in academia or industry, typically these sorts of roles require a mix of Python and R. And it's obviously fantastic if you know one of these languages, but it's even better if you know both of them. There are a lot of similarities between Python and R. They're both interpreted languages, which basically means that for Python script or R scripts to run, you've got to have the language running on your computer. And you can actually combine Python and R code together. So you can actually run a Python script from within an R session and vice versa. And you might find that some tasks are easier to accomplish in Python, others are easier to accomplish in R. So you can kind of mix and match and build a workflow that uses both of these languages depending what you find easiest for the task at hand. So really, why not use both and take advantage of the relative strengths of each of the languages and kind of use them in conjunction with each other. So they're both very popular. This is popularity ranking from a couple of years ago. Perhaps not surprisingly, because Python is a more general purpose programming language. It's more popular than R, but they're both incredibly widely used, as I said, within industry and academia. They're very active communities for both of them. So if you've done one of my R units previously, you'll probably have been using Stack Overflow when you've come across various problems. And they're very active communities in Stack Overflow, both for Python and for R. And again, given the sort of wider use of Python, not surprisingly, there are more comments and questions associated with Python than there are with R. But both have got very active communities. There's a lot of in common between the two languages in the sense that they're both open source, so they're free to use, and that's one of the reasons I suspect why such an active set of communities is built up around these two languages over the past 20, 30 years or so. In terms of data science, data analysis more generally, you see that SAS and Python are widely used across different types of industries. In tech and telecoms, Python is really up there, then R. Similarly for consulting work. So across the board, these are three commonly used languages, but only R and Python are open source, and their popularity is really has increased significantly in recent years, and I suspect that trajectory is only going to continue. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install Python using Conda, which is you can access via the Anaconda website, www.anaconda.com. And this will install not just Python, but a whole bunch of libraries and dependencies that allow us to use Python in the context of the Jupyter Notebooks interface, which is how we're going to be doing our coding. And it also ensures you can keep track of the different configurations of your libraries and Python that you need for different projects that you'll be working on. So you can install, the Anaconda installation package for Windows, Mac, and Linux. When I did these slides, it was Python 3.8 is the most recent version, and you can read the instructions which describe how you do this in more detail down here. But I've also put together some videos basically showing for both Windows and Mac how you actually install Python using Anaconda. So you can either read the instructions for how to do it at the link here and on the previous slide, or you can just watch the wee videos that I've put together, which will talk you through the stages that you need to go through for both Windows 10 and Mac OS in terms of installing sort of Python using Anaconda.